Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the channel. My name is Michael for AudiWorld.com, and today we're checking out the 2022 Audi S8. Yes, there's been a mid-cycle refresh, which is mostly a facelift for Audi's flagship sports sedan. Let's check it out. All right, behind the wheel of the 2022 Audi S8. If you're a current owner of the vehicle, not much has changed from a mechanical standpoint in terms of the Audi S8, but let's go ahead and just kind of see what Audi did for 2022 as a whole. First, what you're gonna notice is they've dropped the V8 option for the A8. So now, if you get the A8, it's only gonna be available with the 3.0 liter twin turbocharged V6, which is, I think it's 335 horsepower and 369 foot-pounds of torque. And if you want the V8, if you want this 4.0 liter, 563 horsepower, 590 foot-pounds of max torque engine, that's you're gonna see in the RS 6 and 7 as well, you've got to go ahead and step up here to the S8. There's also, as far as I'm aware, there is no long option as well for the A8 here in North America, although you can still get those different executive packages. Now, in terms of updates and refreshes and everything like that, again, everything is pretty similar. We've got a different steering wheel here. You've got a different kind of front end and rear look. So up front, you're getting the Matrix LED headlights. We've seen it in the RS5 Sportback, which we reviewed over on AudiWorld.com. I had it with the SQ5, which I drove. It's a pretty cool lighting system. And not only is it bright and it does a little dance when you either lock or unlock the car, you shut it off, turn it on, all that sort of stuff, but they can actually project images either onto the ground or onto a wall, depending on where you are parked. Obviously, projecting things onto the road would be illegal here in America if you are driving, but for kind of static, it's kind of an interesting little artistic flair that the vehicle has and may be able to be used and utilized in ways we have not imagined yet. Out back, you've also got a new set of taillights, and those are actually OLED, so similar technology to what you see in certain flat panel televisions. And what they've set it up, you know, again, there's a light show depending on when you're turning on, locking the car, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And what's particularly interesting is that the brake lights will show up differently depending on what mode you're in. So when you're in dynamic driving mode, the brake lights will show off that they're in dynamic mode, and in Comfort Plus, they'll have a different arrangement. Pretty neat little bit of tech. Other interesting tech that you guys might be aware of, this car is absolutely beautiful on the inside. We've got leather surfaces, carbon fiber inlays. The vehicle will actually hide the air vents when you're not using the climate control, as we're doing now to kind of get good audio. So when you start the car up and you have climate control on, the front of the car kind of wakes up and reveals the vents, which is a neat parlor trick as well. You've got heated, ventilated, and massaging front seats here, and I believe with the executive packages you can get the same in the back. Now, in terms of driving dynamics, here's what you need to know about the suspension and the drive modes and all that sort of stuff. So there's an auto mode, which is kind of your normal do everything mode. You step into dynamic, which is going to lower the car just a little bit, and in doing so, the vehicle is tuned to be flat in corners. Or you could step up into Comfort Plus, which is going to be just a little bit slower with the shifts and the acceleration and all that sort of stuff, the shifting points, the aggression of the throttle mapping and so forth. But you're gonna get a much more plush and compliant ride. Although that being said, the dynamic is harsh in no way at all. But what's particularly neat with Comfort Plus is that they've tuned the suspension so that when you go around corners, the vehicle actually leans into the corners. It lifts up the outside corner and, you know, flattens your turning experience. Whereas in dynamic mode, when you go around the corner, it leaves the car itself flat. So you kind of feel those extra G-forces. You feel the lean, which is very, very minimal. This is a very flat vehicle. Acceleration for this 5,000-pound sedan is under 4 seconds, which is pretty quick and pretty impressive. Steering feeling is precise, but a little bit on the kind of light side. This vehicle also has rear steer, which of course behaves differently at different speeds and kind of different scenarios. Around town, if you're turning around in a parking lot, this vehicle has the same turning radius as the A4, which is pretty remarkable. I did a U-turn in a parking lot just before I came on this drive, and wow, it really turns. You know, this is a 17-foot vehicle and it turns really, really well at slow speeds. At higher speeds, I can't really say that I've been feeling it as much, but we've obviously got Quattro all-wheel drive, and this vehicle feels great going around the corners. The tires are Goodyear Eagle, I believe. And I think they're 265 35s all the way around on either 20 or 21s. Pretty good tires, not much for road noise, except when you're on some concrete, but this vehicle is very quiet inside. It's very smooth in every driving mode, even dynamic. That being said, if you wanted a little bit more stick, you know, you could upgrade to something like a Michelin Pilot Series tire, and you know, I think you might get a little bit more road noise, but you're gonna get a little bit more lateral grip. I did make the tires squeal a little bit, but look, this is a heavy vehicle, and that is to be expected. Acceleration is brisk. We've got an 8-speed transmission that has several different modes. Basically, for normal, you've got your driving mode. If you're in dynamic mode, you will automatically go into sport mode, but you can go into sport mode at any time. Sport mode is just more aggressive shifts, holds the red lines higher, and all those things that you would expect from a sport mode. There's also a manual mode, which you can click over into, and then you can use the paddle shifters to do manual only, and it will lock your RPMs. It will not up or downshift for you. And then there's also, you can actually use the shifter itself to click forward and backwards to do your manual shifting. In all other shifting modes in drive and sport, you can use the paddle shifters. It will up and down shift for you, but after a few seconds of use, it will go back to your drive or your sport shifting mode. One last thing with the suspension is this vehicle actually has what they call predictive suspension. In addition to having all sorts of radar sensors for lane keeping and adaptive cruise control and all those types of things, this actually has a camera or a sensor that is looking forward and analyzing the road in front of the vehicle. And in milliseconds, this thing prepares for incoming bumps and road imperfections, effectively, you know, raising the car if it needs to, smoothing out the ride, and basically isolating the vehicle and its passengers from as much of the road conditions as possible. In addition to the predictive suspension, the Audi also has sensors all the way around, which you would expect these days. But one of the features that it does is that because it's got this hydroelectric air ride suspension that, you know, can adjust the height and adjust the dampening force and all those things, it can also sense if a vehicle is about to hit you from the side. And what it'll actually do is, in addition to preparing the cabin for various airbags and other safety features, it'll actually lift the side of the car that's about to be hit, which will raise up that side of the vehicle and make it so that the vehicle that's hitting you impacts a more structurally sound lower portion of the car, you know, on the doors. And it happens in a fraction of a second, all designed to keep the people inside the S8 safe. Speaking of the suspension, check out here what happens when you go to get into the vehicle. Open up the door and it raises up so that it's easier to get in. Then you get in the car, start it, select your drive mode, and the vehicle will lower back down to the height that corresponds with that particular drive mode. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to claim that this is going to be a full in-depth review. I've only got a couple hours to drive here. I haven't had my customary kind of few days with a vehicle that allows you to get to know it better kind of on a day-to-day existence, kind of find all the quirks and features, so to speak. But as far as first impressions on the driving experience goes, this vehicle is absolutely fantastic. It is glued to the road, although, like I said, I think you could maybe upgrade the tires just to get a little bit more lateral grip, but I think that would come at the cost of road noise. But here in the twisties, on the highway, around town, the S8 is just so planted, so comfortable and so smooth. You just feel kind of wrapped around this 2.5-ton beast. And the driving experience is great. The steering feeling is, of course, a little bit light, but not completely dead. You are getting some feedback from the bumps and kind of what you're doing. The brakes are fantastic. Here, we'll do a quick stop here. Outstanding. Woo! Acceleration is exciting, sub 4 seconds. Look, it's not the blazing fast supercar, but for a luxury flagship sedan, you know, this is just a great do-everything car. Room for 4 adults, 5 in a pinch, massive amounts of trunk space, just an absolute lovely car to drive. Yeah, it's funny, for performance driving, I think I enjoy the Comfort Plus mode more, just because of that vehicle leaning into the corners for you. It's a little bit more relaxing from a driver's perspective. But anyway, great car to drive, particularly in the twisties and just about anywhere you could imagine, really. Road trips, commuting, errands, and even up here in the canyons. Now, I do have a few criticisms. The first is the exhaust is way too quiet. I'd really, really love to hear this engine more. This is something you've probably experienced with other Audis if you are familiar with the brand, and it is true. It is just, you know, unless you are full throttle, you are not really going to hear this thing roar. And the problem is that this thing is quick enough to do illegal, dangerous things so that it's hard to, you know, get your foot to the floor. There it is. But now I have to slow down. So it's quiet again. The other thing is going to be just the throttle response there. There's just a slight delay. I believe it's turbo lag. Just, you know, when you're leaving a stoplight, when you want to downshift, there's just a little bit of delay before boost kicks in and the transmission downshifts. So that's a little bit of a negative. And the last thing is just weight. You know, look, this 5,000 pound sedan, and they have sports car'd the heck out of it, but you cannot mask mass, right? So you're just gonna feel the weight. And for some, that might kind of ruin the experience. For me, I think it's just a marvel of engineering. I can't believe what they've done with something this heavy. It just feels so tuned to the road. You know, again, these are first impressions. I don't own one, and I have only spent a couple hours here driving up to these beautiful mountains in Temecula, California to check it out, and it really won me over very quick. Overall, very positive first impressions. What do you folks think? Have you ever driven any of the recent S8s with this drivetrain in it? What do you think of the exhaust note? What do you think of the driving performance? What mods have you done? Drop a comment if you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're over on Audi World in our forum thread there. Now, full disclosure, of course, as you may have seen in this video, depending on how I edit it, Audi has wined and dined and put me up in a fancy hotel as part of this media drive event. But my intention always as a journalist is to bring my objective analysis to every driving experience in every vehicle I test, and of course my subjective passions, my love for V8s, my love for sports sedans and sports cars and all sorts of things. So I don't have much experience, to be honest, in the Audi universe, but I am quickly becoming a fan of the way they build vehicles. Quality interiors, dynamic driving experiences, lots of features, lots of safety equipment, all those things in a legendary German brand. So it's been an honor getting to know them. Anyway, I'm rambling, as always. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, drop a comment if you made it to the end. Let me know you did. I want to know if all three of you do. I hope you all are well and safe, and we will see you on the next video. We've got some fun stuff coming up. Cheers.